Hello, and welcome to another ohmTown Daily, Season 2, Episode 260 for September 17th, 2023. Tonight we're going to be discussing, maybe briefly, the future of electric motorcycles, Star Wars pivoting on George Lucas. Wait, businesses lied to us? This is my shock face. Coming together when needed, least expensive states, fundamental flaws in contracts. When do we get tired of brazen shoplifting? Going against the grain. This music is electric and still exporting you can't stop business. That and a whole lot of snark. Next on ohmTown Daily. Alrighty. Just a warning. I probably shouldn't say this at the beginning of a show, but I've got a massive headache. It came on right when the show started. I don't know what's going on. So, let's see if I can make something of this without it coming across in the stream. Beyond me telling you, but that's how the sausage is made. Yesterday's episode didn't make it up yet onto YouTube. It's here in the VOD, but and it's not on the podcast either, because I did an update and the update failed. Today is all right, and the first thing in the morning is it rained. So yeah, I guess that's how the day starts. Let's get going. Very first article. So Eric Buell on the future of electric motorcycles. If you've never seen a Buell motorcycle, they're pretty cool looking. And I don't know that much about them, but well, Buell does. The future of mopeds and motorcycles is electric. Eric Buell says he sees mopeds and motorcycles playing a greater role in transportation. Yeah, as long as people don't get run over. Buell motorcycles, if I recall correctly, made a really unique use of the frame of their motorcycles by putting the fuel tank inside the frame of the motorcycle itself and not a separate fuel tank. Again, if I recall correctly, it's been a long time since I've touched a motorcycle. But I wanted to talk about this because I think electric motorcycles are pretty damn cool. The article's over at techcrunch.com. Let me throw the article into the chat so you can follow the link via the VOD and or the show note, however you want to. But so says the USA might be the land of the automobile, with its grid-oriented cities, wide roads, and interstates rolling off into the horizon, but cities that were not built for cars have narrow, winding, and possibly cobbled streets without many parking spots. It says options in the article. And you'll find that mopeds and small-engined bikes of various stripes are a far more common sight in these cities than cars. Now, what's interesting is the United States has been, I don't know, kind of arguing with itself about small cities, small towns, planned communities, where they want a central area that has the tiny country house kind of community, this
like a market square kind of thing.
Yeah, a market square where people are living above their actual storefronts, and you see this across a lot of large cities, suburbs. Not in the metropolitan area so much. It's just an impossibility. You don't get population density there, but when you start heading out, and it's right in between urban and suburban and rural, right in there, there's this mix. And sometimes you find these planned communities where the roads are designed to facilitate slow driving, and you can go for walks around the neighborhood and all of that kind of stuff. And that's where I see, mopeds and motorcycles that aren't Harleys, although there is an electric Harley out there. Now, when you talk to people about this kind of stuff, they say, well, the reason why motorcycles are loud is so that it lets people know where they are on the road. But by the time anybody hears a fast motorcycle, which is a large number of motorcycle riders drive fast, split lanes, etc. By the time you even know that they're in existence, they've already either gone past you, or you've done something stupid and clipped them into a bush. It's a stupid mistake is why I don't ride a motorcycle, but not everybody is easily moved away from riding a motorcycle. So it being electric means that it's going to be silent unless there's something augmenting it, which I don't think a lot of motorcycle riders are interested in having a quiet motorcycle.
And for safety, they're not going to want to have a quiet one either.
Yeah. And just like you said, if that whole adage is correct, I never saw motorcycles as needing to be loud when I rode, but hey, it is what it is. Some people buy into that ideology, and I'm sure they're right for their particular use case. So the author of this article, I'm not sure how to pronounce their first name, Hage, Jan Camps, or Jan Camps. I don't know if I want to Americanize it any more than that. Just call them J-Lo. No, I have no idea how to pronounce their name. Anyway, they said that they spoke to motorcycle legend Eric Buell to get his vision on what the future holds. A motorcycle racing champion, engineer, founder of Buell Motorcycle Company, Buell helps the fuel company dream up what's next, including the recently launched $10,700 fuel flow. Come on. Really? Did you really have to spell it like that? Did you really have to push it that way? All right. Well, whatever. So the article is actually kind of split because it's part of TechCrunch, and right here is where it ends. But anyway, it says a bunch of mayors of cities from all across Europe are standing up and saying they're going to ban internal combustion for their cities, Buell says, highlighting what is driving the change. It's not going to happen next year, but it's going to happen soon. And in Paris, home of at least 1 million mopeds and motorcycles, daily parking charges are now being imposed on two-wheeled vehicles with engines, but not electric ones. So when it comes to electrifying motorcycles, light, middleweight, or moped-sized vehicles are the obvious starting point for Buell. So
what I can't quite figure out is how they're going to do action scenes in movies. There's always a motorcycle chasing or being chased. If it doesn't have any sound, it's going to be kind of weird.
Interesting. That's an interesting take. What are they? I guess they can just put some sound in it. That's what they've done in the past. Give something like when they have cars racing around, when they hear the car accelerating, it isn't the naked sound from the street, it's augmented. But the idea of a silent motorcycle, I'm more interested in the long distance of it and the relative safety of it and the weight of it. But we know that vehicles that are electric are dramatically heavier than their ICE compatriots. So I think that the very nature of motorcycles, motorcycles are only two wheels. Then you get these quasi motorcycle vehicles. You just refer to them as vehicles, like the slingshot or trikes. A slingshot is two wheels in the front. A trike is two wheels in the back. I love the stability of a trike. Strike that. I love the stability of a slingshot. Not too hip to trikes, but a four-wheel motorcycle where it's narrow and has four independent suspension wheels, I think would be tremendous. At least, again, for me, it basically amounts to a narrow body car. But it being electric, it's still going to be heavy. It's still going to need battery charging, if not fast swapping. And at this point in the game, it's still only one wheel out of the two. So I don't know. I think if anybody's going to make it happen at $10,000, somebody who's spun up at least, again, in the conversations that I've had in the past about Buell's bikes, they've been well received. Not necessarily the most popular, but certainly people do appreciate them when they do buy them. Seems like it might be a win, so we'll see. I'll keep on watching. At $11,000, it seems like it's a pretty good deal for something that can perhaps run for an extended period of time, is name brand, high quality, and not something that you're going to just regret immediately after buying it off Amazon. Pardon me.
Well, and then I start wondering about the resale, because we've talked about that with cars. Like, how much of that price is the battery?
Yeah, exactly. And you'll go through it. I think you'll go through it faster on a motorcycle. It's smaller, so you'll have to recharge it more. Although it's almost entirely built around how much you abuse the power. So if you're sitting there racing this thing like it's, imperative that you drain its battery in one direction, then you're going to have to replace it sooner because you're wear and tear. So I don't know. I don't like the idea of batteries ending up being 50% of the price of the vehicle, and then you have to replace it in 5 years. I don't know how long people typically keep their vehicles anymore, but if the price of vehicles means anything, it's once a lifetime, for crying out loud, because some of the cars that I thought used to be really inexpensive for what they were are now $65,000 cars. So like Ford 150 seems to have gotten more expensive, but maybe it's just in my head. I'd have to look again. It's been a while since I paid attention to car prices. So I think the AI is doing some noodling around with that.
Well, and I'm finding more how long you should keep it, not how long you do keep it, because those are not going to be the same. Apparently 8.4 years for a car. Now that's just a regular car, not necessarily an EV.
Yeah, I wonder, has that increased since initially? Have people always been keeping them 8 years?
Well, remember, that's every driver.
Right.
So I suspect there's greater longevity with older drivers, for instance, maybe. I don't know that, but actually in 2019, it looks like it's actually gone down, because apparently then it was 11.4 years, which that doesn't make sense.
It does if the idea was to...
That was the age of the vehicle, not necessarily how long one driver kept it, so it could have been passed to other drivers.
Gotcha. I mean, if the ideology was to maximize your resale value, then you would sell it sooner, before the warranty expires and stuff like that. That way, the person that gets it has some bite at the apple of recovering from some mechanical failure at the end of its warranty life. So we'll keep an eye on this. I'd love to see what Buell comes up with. It'll be innovative. I've always liked the design of their frames as compared to others, which are just these standard tubes. They typically had these thick, wide frames for all of their parts. Like it wasn't just a tube. I don't know. I liked the Buell designs. Okay, let's keep on going though. So the next article is over in the continuity report. Star Wars completely turns Star Wars completely turns George Lucas's original vision on its head. Apparently this article has spoilers, so turn it off for the next 5 minutes or so. If you're not interested in this, I should come up with a spoiler tag and just alert.
Spoiler,
can't do it now.
Spoiler.
Yeah. Anyway, The article contains spoilers for Ahsoka Episode 5. Ahsoka demonstrates Dave Filoni's admiration and respect for George Lucas's vision of Star Wars, but the show is also willing to turn that vision on its head. Striking a balance between old ideas and fresh ones is something that all long-running franchises suffer from, especially Star Wars in recent years. Many of the Disney-era movies and TV shows have been criticized for rehashing worn-out ideas, while projects like Star Wars The Last Jedi faced backlash for trying to do the opposite. Both instances demonstrate Star Wars' struggle to move on. I think what they're going to end up talking about in this is the whole magic aspect, the whole woo-woo. But I haven't read this article, so we'll see what happens. Nathaniel Rourke over at Screen Rant put the article together. The deck statement says what I said earlier. Many Star Wars projects stick close to George Lucas's vision while others try to move past it, but Ahsoka has turned Lucas's concept on its head. So let's see if it says anything quickly that we can... Star Wars Galaxy is no longer the one that's far, far away. Ezra and Thrawn is interesting. So the Star Wars movies and TV shows have always been set in a long time ago, long, far away galaxy. But Ahsoka, this phrase applies to the distant galaxy where Ezra Bridger and Grand Admiral Thrawn are trapped. Jace Syndulla even talks about Ezra being taken far, far away, confirming that this phrase now applies to the other galaxy, at least from the character's perspective. I'm not sure if that's what they're actually talking about in this. It says many of the Disney era...
They're saying it's the first time that's happened.
That they've actually mentioned it?
Like that they've shifted the perspective and like the protagonists are not far, far away. Like the whole story is supposed to be far, far away.
Right. Well, I mean, for us, it's still far, far away, and the telling of the story is it's still far, far away a long time ago, and I guess they're just kind of making it meta now by pushing it down to the character level. Filoni was mentored by Lucas during their time working on Star Wars, The Clone Wars, so his projects have always respected the most important rules and themes laid out by the Star Wars creator. That's weird. Star Wars is that the Star Wars creator? I don't like that. By the Star Wars creator. Stick to it.
They could have just said laid out by Lucas.
Yeah. At the same time, Lucas always liked to experiment and try new ideas, and Filoni's crew used the realm of animated television to do so. I think that they've done a tremendous job in the Clone Wars. Another animated series works. What I don't like is from the movies themselves, where they made they tried to enumerate what midichlorians were, and that you could have more of them. You could actually, it became a metric of how powerful you were. I've never seen that many midichlorian. I've never seen that high of a midichlorian count in a sample before, that kind of thing. When that makes it so mundane. Like, all you have to do is scour the universe and you'll find people with various levels of midichlorians, and midichlorians are the things that allow us to tap into the Force. It's so gatekeeping, it kind of irritated me. And in this one, it's the first time outside of the animated series where you see kind of woo-woo stuff, where you get the equivalent of a wizard casting a spell on a ball that tells where basically a GPS coordinates in interstellar space. I thought that it was a little meh. It dragged Star Wars into a realm where there's magic, and this series, like The Mandalorian, pulled it a lot further away from it, mainly because they've been doing away with they never really embraced any of the magic in the series, in the movies, right? It became gatekeeping with measuring midichlorians. There are people that are capable of imbuing themselves with like electricity and stuff like that because they're capable of wielding the force, the dark side of the force. That's about as woo-woo as you got, but I don't know. Maybe that's what it was. It was force lifting a ball and activating it to. So I'll have to keep on cogitating this and form a real opinion about it because I don't know. I just didn't like, force wizards. It's okay. Well,
that'll be a spin-off. Force Wizards.
That's right. Another animated series, Star Wars Force Wizards. All right. Well, anyway, I don't think this really changed anything, did it, for you?
I think there was more.
Yeah, it says how Ahsoka's new galaxy changes
It's more on the same topic, though.
Yeah. So
I didn't even pick up on that when watching the episode.
What's that? That it got pushed?
Yeah.
Yeah. It continues to be such a radical shift, even if we knew there had been intergalactic species before. Opening Star Wars up to exploring new galaxies is one of the biggest twists in years. But is it really? I mean, it's right there. And if you can fold time and space, the equivalent of warp travel, right? That's what they just did. It doesn't seem like it's that big of a leap. Sorry.
I would agree. It's not that much of a... Can't think of what the term is.
Yeah, it's not that big of a space jump. So I don't know.
Yes, thank you. That's what I was about to say.
It doesn't really mean much to me. Perhaps Ahsoka will not be able to use the Force outside of the Star Wars galaxy or the mysterious pathway to Peridea. May have been even stronger connection to the Force. The ancient people Lady Morgan spoke of, this is why Lady Morgan really gets dangerously close to Morgana and the whole wizardry thing of Arthurian legend. And I think that's really what Lady Morgan is, because I think it's Lady Morgana in Arthurian legend. Ahsoka could even handle references to other Star Wars stories that have explored intergalactic travel, such as the Yuzhen Vong from Star Wars, The New Jedi Order. Whatever Ahsoka does next, it's clear that Star Wars has turned Lucas's vision on its head by moving beyond the galaxy far, far away into a galaxy far, far, far away.
Exactly.
So I added that last bit. That's not in the article. So the thing about this is, while I'm giving this a whole lot of talking to, I suspend all of this critical thinking about the minutia of the universe because it's just good, plain fun. Regardless of when you get back into it, it's kind of like Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, right? Or Indiana Jones and the Lost Ark, right?
Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah. So the whole movie, you're sitting there watching this and it's awesome, right? From one thing to another, it's this great adventure. But at the very end, the Nazis go through with opening up the Ark of the Covenant and everybody dying. It seals itself back up and everybody goes on their merry way. Nothing that Indiana Jones did facilitated, stopped, or did anything to prevent that. It didn't mitigate it. All it did was extend it into a 2-hour movie. It would have been better for him to just go ahead, go open it. I know the truth. You shouldn't be messing with it, but I'm not going to tell you that. Y'all can just go and get turned to dust and explode and stuff like that. And then I'll go back to your island and pick up the box. Ta-da! And that's kind of how this is. When you start rooting around in it, trying to figure out the flaws in it without it being fun, like the continuity report is all about digging through this and making fun of it. But when you write a long article and speak of it like it, reverential, like it needs to be more serious than it is, or more accurate, and adhere to this, that, and the other a little too much. It seems like it's a little too much, but I enjoy this no matter what. I love watching the show. I've read some of the books. I don't get too deep into it, but I don't have enough time to sit there and read books for pleasure.
I don't think a site like Screen Rant would exist except for articles like this, though.
Yeah. No, I know. But that's why I read stuff like this, because I don't have the time to, root through it. And that's why ohmTown exists, to aggregate all of this. So I dig this stuff. And I definitely wouldn't sit there and go, oh, I've burned out Star Wars because it's now a galaxy far, far, far away. Just enjoy it, folks, and then come and talk to us about it when each episode. I would love to do a show about shows regularly, but we have to find some time, or another host to do it. All right, let's keep going. We've barely touched our articles. Let me back up 1 second here and throw that into the chat. And our next article is over in ohmTown Daily. California lawsuit says oil giants deceive public on climate, seeks funds for storm damage. This is my shocked face is the title of this segment. Wait, businesses lied to us? This is my shocked face.
Especially oil companies.
Yeah, that never happens. Mega corporations and those with a vested interest in pulling the wool over people's eyes so that they can make a profit even in your demise never lie to you about the safety and security of their product. Never. Those pans that you used to bake on about 10 years ago? Yeah, they were poisoning you. The ones that you're still using today? Yeah, those are still poisoning you. Suit claims they deceive the public about the risks of fossil fuels. People are still smoking. And science can demonstrate how you're going to cough up a black lung from time to time, and ultimately will probably be your demise. But we still do it. We still sell them. Kind of wild, huh? Well, the articles...
but it even has warnings like death, but people still do it.
Yeah.
But I know that's not always what happened historically.
Yeah. So the state of California filed a lawsuit against some of the world's largest oil and gas companies, claiming that they deceived the public about the risks of fossil fuels, blamed for climate change related storms and wildfires that caused billions of dollars. I like that the deck statement stops. Dull. Michael R. Blood. That's a hell of a name. Associated Press wrote it for, or it was posted over at abcnews.go.com. More than 50 years, Big Oil has been lying to us, covering up the fact that they've known how dangerous the fossil fuels they produce are for our planet, Newsom said. California taxpayers shouldn't have to foot the bill for billions of dollars in damages. Wildfires wiping out entire communities, toxic smoke clogging our air, deadly heat waves, record-breaking droughts, parching our wells. You know what's parching all of the wells in Northern California?
No.
Trees. Planting trees like almond trees. Planting crops
Right,
that are
almond
water
farms,
hungry.
Yes, definitely. Agricultural, yes.
All kinds of agriculture sitting there in what amounts to a desert, and you're pumping water from wells that are aquifers that are protected so that people in places where you should be growing stuff and has an affinity for that region should be using that water, and it's in stasis with that environment. But when you pump water out to the freaking desert, that's not where it's supposed to be. It's going to boil away a whole lot faster. I don't know. But again, like I said, maybe it was last episode, maybe the episode before, we use science to short circuit nature. We bisect the angle and we do it in a way that isn't necessarily beneficial to the whole, as long as a small portion makes a shit ton of money. It's all good. Well, this ongoing coordinated campaign of to wage meritless, politicized lawsuits against a foundational American industry and its workers is nothing more than a distraction from important national conversations and enormous waste of taxpayer resources, says the Institute Senior Vice President Ryan Myers said in a statement. This is the American Petroleum Institute, an industry group also named in the lawsuit, said that climate policy should be debated in Congress, not the courtroom. Well, climate policy actually should probably be born from academia, who's doing the science that shows that fossil fuels are leading directly to climate change. But hell no.
But that doesn't absolve the companies of their practices.
Correct. Yeah, I agree.
And especially if they're doing one thing and then stating that it's safe, or they're stating that they're doing something else.
Right. Yeah. It's bad for the environment. But if we give them the right stats, then it's okay and, within the realm of livability. But what's really happening is evidence is showing that it's doing a horrendous amount of damage to the environment, to the point where Category 5 hurricanes are spawning from 2 to 5 in 24 hours, which is was extremely rare. And then migrating all the way up to Maine, for crying out loud. And we don't even monitor like monsoon season areas, like what's going on the other side of the planet. So California's suit adds to the growing momentum to hold big oil accountable for its decades of deception and secure access to justice for people and communities suffering from fossil fuel extreme weather and slow onset disasters such as sea level rise, says Kathy Mulvey of the Union of Concerned Scientists. Said that in an email. 135-page complaint that demonstrates that the fossil fuel industry is known since the 60s. This sounds very familiar, right? It sounds like DDTs. It sounds like cigarettes. It sounds like...
Right. Sounds like fill in the blank, right?
Countless
like
other...
We've seen this cycle multiple times.
Massive profits. And the sociopathic result of, well, people are dying, but it's not people that I care about, so it's fine. But the moment that, a CEO's daughter or mother gets breast cancer, then it's suddenly a massive push to get messaging out to their constituents, employees, and whatnot to have them donate to cancer research, instead of looking at the bigger picture as a human and saying, this is a big problem. And I see that my corporation, fossil fuels, are causing damage to the entire freaking world, not just to me, right? Let's do something about it. Let's try and find some other solution for it. But then it all gets relegated to, well, if I don't do it and make millions, then somebody else will do it and take millions that I could have been getting. So screw you again. Don't come to me talking about this, you poors, you unconnected poor. Go away and go buy $5 gas. Oh, and while you're complaining about $5 gas, you be sure to complain that it's the president's fault and not the fact that the biggest chunk of money for each gallon is state-based and the corporate portion of it. Federal government doesn't take jack from it. 19 cents per gallon typically, if that. Actually, I think if I recall correctly, 19 cents was the high side for federal government. It's the state and its corporate profit So anyway, I think that everybody should be a little bit more aware of what's going on, which is why I chose this. But lawsuits from California, I mean, that's almost a dime a dozen, by the way. You can't buy
I feel
something.
like it's almost like a daily occurrence.
Oh, sure. Yeah. And you can't buy something nowadays without there being a California warning that it is bad for the environment. So when you cry wolf constantly, people just start ignoring you. And I think that's what corporations are doing about California lawsuits. Okay, let's keep going.
Well, they'll be doing that till they're successful, and then, as in the suits.
Yeah, that's right. How to start a movement. So this next article is over in ohmTown Daily. Workers' strikes in the U.S. are at the highest point since 20. So, okay, it's 2023. It's the highest point since 2000. It's been slowly increasing. 4.1 million days lost in August due to labor activism. It's going to continue because there's more laborers being formed almost on the daily, it seems. U.S. workers are turning to strike action to settle labor disputes at the highest rate in almost 25 years. This August, 4.1 million workdays were lost due to strikes. I don't think that is going to change anytime soon because there's a lot of money in the system, and the people who have the money are basically saying, well, we've got the money and it's out there. There's more of it out there. And if I raise the rates, I'll keep on getting more and more money. And if you don't like it, then tough. We can withstand you. So go ahead and strike. You're going to be poorer, and my money is invested. My corporation's money is invested. So I'll be making 12 to 20% annual return, and you'll still be living paycheck to paycheck. So you will witness more and more unions being formed, and more unions in distinct labor pools.
Right. Like we're seeing it in different industries. I think they're feeding off of each other. I think it's going to increase, not just continue.
Oh, yeah.
And plus, some of these are recent strikes. So think about how many days could be lost across, say, thousands of workers per strike. It's going to go up.
Yeah, I think it's going to go up too, and get bigger. And unions are going to start working together because... let's just say that each dollar is a voice, right? So that means that each union worker's voice is kind of washed out by the billions that corporations make. So I think the unions are going to have to start working together. And they kind of do. I don't know if they're very cognizant of each other in the sense that they're talking directly to each other. Like, hey, let's all say the same message. But I think this is going to continue to be amplified. Public approval of labor unions is also up, reaching its highest point since 1965 in recent years. Everything old is new again.
Something you said was interesting too, because some of the well-known unions are actually those of two separate organizations that merged, right? Like SAG-AFTRA, AFL-CIO. So I mean, are we going to start to see some of that? And if so, they're going to become even more powerful, have more members, potentially have more leverage.
Yep. And that's the only way that it's really going to happen, because instilling some type of ethic or moral that, hey, look, I'm making billions of dollars each year. I think that maybe we should give some money to the people that are making it actually happen. When there's more money in the system, aggregating it and giving it to the investors, even though they're already getting a tremendous amount of profitability off of the stock, it shouldn't be a huge jump in the stock, because that's where the money basically gets concentrated. It's the day-to-day workers that should be getting higher salaries, because they're the ones that are actually making the goddamn company work. I just don't get it.
What? It's not the CEO making all the widgets?
No. I know that they sit there and stand next to each individual employee and finish the widget creation and anoint it with their glory. But no, that's not how it works. So you hire people that are competent. Don't pretend to be the smartest person in the room. I'm pretty sure if anybody had ambition to be a CEO, a lot of people just don't want that. But I'm pretty sure that any worker that's in your enterprise could probably run the enterprise if they would have followed the same thing. This is the whole thing. What was the movie where they switched places? Trading Places. Duh. It's basically the premise of Trading Places, right? Like, I could take somebody from any other, like some manufacturing plant, and if I could motivate them to stay engaged as being senior leadership, I could make them CEO. Right?
Right. The knockoff movie was called Switching Places.
Wait. That's the Netflix one?
Yeah, sure.
Or no, Nickelodeon. Yeah. The Disney one was Trading Places, but the Nickelodeon one was Switching Spots. And it was about a Dalmatian and a cheetah.
There you go.
Flipped the type of spots. And the Dalmatian suddenly was afraid of water and wouldn't run across puddles and stuff like that. Man, if y'all knew, this is all part of the history of the AI and myself. We were once, I took the Sentient AI and put them, attached a little monitor and a camera and brought them to a zoo. And there was like 30 feet of water between humans and these cheetahs, and there was a park rep there, and we were like, don't they just like sprint across that water? Because it wasn't very deep. You could actually see the bottom of it. And they're like, no, they're afraid of water. They don't like water. You're putting a lot of faith, man, and hunger. Oh, we keep them well fed. You better double it. Oh, man. Okay, well, anyway, back to the UAW and strikers in general. I think it's going to increase, just like you said. So let's keep on hustling through this. All right, so the next article's over in ohmTown Daily, the 10 least expensive states to own a home. I'm just going to jump straight into this Business Insider article. Jordan Pandy is the author. Let's see. The average American homeowner spends $624,000 on the expenses of owning a home over the time of owning a home, according to fintech company Self-Found. Huh.
Is that an addition to the home? It's like the purchase, or is that including the purchase price? I'm hoping it's including it.
Well, let's find out. Taxes, household repairs, home improvements contribute to the high cost of being a homeowner. There are 10 states, including Ohio and Iowa. I'm not sure why they would separate those two, where homeownership is less than the national average.
I mean, this article only cares about you if you're in Ohio or Iowa, apparently.
Yeah. Okay, so the study cites Redfin's findings that the average American homeowner spends 13.2 years in one house, and in that time spends $624,000. I'm rounding up, by the way. On the expenses of owning a house, according to Zillow, the average cost of a home in the U.S. is $350,000 as of August. Again, I round up to the nearest whole number, or nearest whole thousand. The expenses of owning a home cited by Self, not me, it's a company called Self, and not you, Self, it's a company called Self, include down payment, closing fees, mortgage repayment, moving costs, taxes, ongoing maintenance, etc. Mortgage payments, which Insider previously reported as $2,823 a month on a 30-year fixed mortgage. That might actually be low. I'm not sure what the mortgage rates are nowadays. Last time I checked, they were hedging at 8%. which isn't 1970s high, but it's pretty damn high. So let's see here. Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't really go into that. The average Hawaii owner will pay $1.5 million. I rounded up a lot there, $20,000.
By the way, that previous stat was recent. It was from July.
Okay.
About the monthly mortgage payments. So.
Gotcha. So don't try apparently buying in Hawaii, because you're going to need $1.5 million in expenses like closing costs, mortgage payments, maintenance fees, and utilities over 13.2 years. But that's everything. So I think this one up here is everything. The $623,000, that's everything over the lifetime of you owning the house. Yeah, I can see that. So,
I mean, even just taxes, right, on the mortgage payments.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be driving
interest.
it up.
Sorry, I don't know why I said taxes.
It's all kinds of stuff. There, because there are taxes, property taxes and whatnot. Ongoing maintenance, renovations, utilities, all of that adds to it. So they are actually saying if you take the average home and then live in it for 13.2 years, you're going to spend $624,000. So if you start out at $624,000, you're going to be adding
probably more than that, because I suspect it's not.
It scales, right?
Right, exactly. Like it might be another.
It's another 600,000.
Another 600,000, probably, right? Because it doubles, right, from the house price, roughly.
Yeah, roughly. Yeah, it's like 80%. So they say Alabama has a lower cost of owning a home over 13.2 years. Only 430 over instead of 630. Indiana is 421. Kansas is 418. That's in thousands, by the way. Louisiana, 410,000. Kentucky, 402,000. Iowa, 400,000. Well, 401,000. Ohio is under 400,000, 395,000. See, they say these are all average. So I suppose that's an interesting metric, but it's always going to be based on the context of your particular purchase, your credit history,
how old your home is, what your mortgage rate is,
all kinds of stuff.
How ridiculously large your house is or how tiny your house is.
Yep. I'm going to be moving into a tiny home. Oklahoma at 390,000, Mississippi at 381,000, and West Virginia at 322,000. I'll round down on this one, 321,000. But it's West Virginia. So I'll just leave all that there. All right, folks. Let's see.
So if you want a less expensive homeownership process, go generally toward the center of the country.
I suppose West Virginia is on the East Coast, though. Like pretty darn close to the East Coast. It's a state away.
Right, but it's not on the coast. There weren't any states in there that were on a coast.
Oh, no, of course not.
Not on an east or west coast.
You get too comfortable and the price goes up. Okay, so let's go on to the next one. The next article is over in Hatch Ideas. Hollywood is paying a steep price for never really figuring out the streaming model. So the only reason why I chose this is because it has to do with the streaming model and the fact that contracts were formed. Here's my problem with the contracts, and that's why I call this section Fundamental Flaws in Contracts. So the fundamental flaw in contracts, particularly around technology, is that if you are bound by a contract that has too long a legs, it can't pivot when something unknown or uncapitalized takes place. And that's what happened. Something catastrophic took place. And And a knock-on effect of this flaw is that if it were an act of God, the winning party would have been the studio, not the employee. The studio would have said, well, force majeure, I'm going to bounce you out of this contract. We can renegotiate it. But because this isn't being coined as an act of God, but a market force, the certain people are able to exploit it and say, well, you're in a contract. But something nearly miraculous happened. People embraced the streaming environment. And this fundamental shift in market forces really should have forced every contract back into renegotiation, because nobody knew what was going to happen with this. And if it would have gone the other way, you can bet your ass that these contracts would have had a rider in it that said, well, this is taking place, we're losing money, we need to renegotiate. But because the bigger of the organizational bodies is making money hand over fist, they're saying, sorry, you have to stick to your contract. Well, now contracts are ending, and I keep like feeling like the studios and owners are sitting there saying, well, we really don't know what's going to happen with streaming, so we can't pay you a lot. Well, everything is in the air. The only thing that's really working is streaming. That's what everybody is doing. They're really burnt out with the idea of going to a theater and having to deal with human beings. I mean, you never know when somebody's going to pull a Bobert. Anyway.
Too soon.
Yeah, it's always too soon to mention that kind of stuff. Streaming broke the traditional media model. Legacy media companies are still figuring out the future. No, bullshit. They know exactly what the future is. The writing is on the wall. What they are trying to figure out is how to exploit the working class. And at the same time where they're trying to figure out the streaming model, suddenly artificial intelligence, machine learning, and 3D modeling have created a perfect storm that allows these studios to pull a human actor out of the circuit. Well, I and many other people out there, we appreciate the human actor. We don't want to look at just droids. We want human actors. But then again, everything in moderation, I suppose. I have no problem watching animation, but it's a voice actor. It's not something artificial intelligent.
Right. I mean, you don't, well, and it's not the same experience watching animated.
Right. So these legacy companies holding on to that model for as long as possible. The articles over at CNBC, Lillian Rizzo and Sarah Whitten are the authors of this article. The recent dispute between cable company Charter Communications and Disney highlights how companies are clinging to that old model. This issue is at the forefront of the writers and actors strike, which have halted Hollywood productions, putting media companies at further disadvantage. I think that they know that they need to compensate people for streaming. The problem that I see with streaming, though, is that everybody is flying solo on this, spinning up their own very expensive streaming platforms, and that is the real problem. They're trying to sit there, they're making tons of money and then investing a whole bunch in hardware and software infrastructure support and whatnot, spinning up their own channels. Why? Because they want to produce everything, stream everything, capitalize on everything internally, instead of doing the internet version of cable company and distributing from people who are competing for your dollars. So there should be a company out there or companies that are providing infrastructure and whatnot for all of these. Disney, Warner Brothers, Paramount, NBC, ABC, Netflix, etc. They're all sitting there saying, yeah, we can do it for X amount. And all of these companies are saying, okay, we'll pay you. You provide all of the distribution, and we concentrate on what we do best, because they're not all hardware and software experts. They're good at production of movies, but that's not how it works. They all have their own infrastructure, apparently. It's my understanding. So it says broken model. 2 strategies media companies long relied on: windowing content for various platforms and creating more cable channels to reap higher fees from the bundle, prove lucrative, and still reap profits. Quote, "This gun has been cocking itself for decades," says Solomon, noting that the pay TV bundle was a good value proposition until it became too expensive for consumers. That gave Netflix an opening to upend how the entertainment industry makes and spends money. Yeah, and that whole TV bundle stuff was greed. You know, people were
monopolies, right?
Yep, yeah. People were interested in sports and apparently lose their mind when they don't have the ability to access the sport, so they were willing to pay $125 more than your average cable package so that they could see sports, and ESPN became highly profitable. And then it made enough to spin off into its own streaming platform twice over. I mean, it's just bananas.
Well, and then others, of course, kind of tried to copy their model.
Yeah,
except
and they
weren't
did
really
so.
situated to do that. Yeah.
Well, they tried to, at least, yeah. Anyway, so there were also massive one-off licensing deals for shows like The Office, Friends, Seinfeld, which viewers were actively watching on repeat. And all of this is this arbitrage pricing where they find some niche where they can slice off a tranche of wealth-reaping content, and they have to pay more for it, even though it's already been a sunk cost and profitable life over. They're still treating it as this highly lucrative element because people are rewatching. I don't know. It seems like something that ages should be less expensive, unless it suffers from consumption. So like if there's only 15 bottles of wine and 10 of them get consumed, that last 5 are going to be wildly expensive. But you can stream Seinfeld on repeat forever, infinite number of copies. I'm paying the price for it to be downloaded. I'm the one that's paying the price to watch it from a streaming service. I'm the one that's paying the price to consume it. This has already paid for itself thousands of times over. Why is it still expensive? But it is. Again, I'm not a Fortune 100 company CEO. Well, you know what? When you're at that level, you probably have great work-life balance because you're telling everybody else to go do shit. So.
Right, and you have tons of people to go do stuff, and you don't necessarily have to be spending all your hours on that.
I just have to be sociopathic. Got it. Okay. And treat donation as something to just write my taxes down with instead of I said too much. Okay, even the AI is giving me warnings. I'm going to move on to the next article. So the next article is over in the Hatch Ideas channel. Small shops call for aid to tackle brazen shoplifters. The only thing that comes to mind with this is we used to tackle these mofos when they were trying to shoplift, and people would get hurt, and there might be a lawsuit, or somebody might have to have medical bills paid. But you didn't have brazen shoplifting, right? So this is, I guess, my time to say, get off my lawn, or whatever you want to say. But his situation is seen in I think there's a typo. This situation is seen in small shops across the country, says the Federation of Independent Retailers, which basically people going into, and this is a BBC News or BBC.com article by Divya Talwar and Eleanor Lay. A convenience store owner says he witnesses up to 9 shoplifting incidents a day with criminals who are more brazen and aggressive.
Wow.
That's
And
insane.
I think even though this is in the UK, like we've seen definitely an uptick about brazen shoplifting and more organized shoplifting in the US as well. So I don't think it's a UK unique issue.
No, not at all. The group, which represents 10,000 shopkeepers, is calling for government help to tackle the problem. Well, you're not going to be able to. Either you institute castle doctrine, where you can protect your enterprise, or you focus on the other side, which is mental health and opportunity. And that's much more expensive and nebulous and requires people to actually take action for themselves. That isn't criminal. They have to actually go to school, get tooled up, capable of working for somebody, and then willing to work for somebody instead of just stealing shit and running away. So he says, Silveratnam from South London says that his staff face both verbal and physical abuse. It's because they're the rise of sociopathy. It doesn't. My claim that when you get ultra rich, you become more and more sociopathic, that holds true. But it also holds true that sociopathy in general is going up. And that is documented as well. Hold on one second. Let me back up for 1 second. Where's that 10 most? That's the 10 most, right? So I got to throw that article right there into the chat. We'll get back to the other one here. And then this is the small shops one. Okay, so these small shops are seeing shoplifting because they don't have the ability to defend themselves from these thieves. And the thieves, and I'm not condoning it, I'm just telling you why it happens. It's because they're sociopathic. They don't have good coping skills. They don't have a job. They're not educated. They're not kept up in terms of applicable skills to go get a job, and or they don't want to go and work because they know that they can go into any old shop and steal shit. So it says we've seen a big increase in organized gangs dealing to or stealing to order, when whether it's honey, coffee, or meats. In the past week, one of Silveratnam's employees was taken to hospital after being hit in the head with an iron nail. What the hell? Another staff member was attacked with a stick of sugarcane, which, by the way, hurts. Anyway, so they're like putting up cameras, they're putting up barriers. You still have to interact and stalk, so there's going to be somebody that's out in the wild. And for all of you who don't have the ability to see what I see, the artificial intelligence is absolutely shocked right now that this is a reality for humans. So yeah.
The theft doesn't surprise me as much as the violence for shoplifting. That to me is even more concerning than the uptick in the thefts. The thefts are bad, of course, for economic and safety fears and everything, but hitting somebody over the head to steal a pack of fill in the blank is just outrageous.
It's because they're sociopathic. They don't see humans as themselves. They see them as objects that they can destroy. They have no emotional tie to anything except getting what they want. It's borderline psychotic, but they understand emotions. They just don't care. They're willing to inflict pain on others. But their tune changes when it happens to them. Every time. So, and even then, that's only true to a point. You might actually end up with a real psycho. But anyway, figures this year from Trade Body, the British Retail Consortium, show retail thefts in England and Wales rose by 26% in 2022. Rose by 26%. in 1 year.
That seems
Extraordinary.
like an extreme percentage.
Yep. So the article goes into more detail, but I'll let you traverse that.
Wait, can you scroll up to see the top one? Look at the City of London
Oh, this here?
police statistic. Yeah.
85.7% increase in shoplifting. It's because there's a policy that you can just go and do it, and shopkeepers can't do anything about it.
Police won't respond in general because they have other things they need to respond to.
Higher profile, whatever. Yep. There's fewer police. There isn't a big enough budget. There's only so much time in the world for somebody to show up. But then people complain when it becomes a police state where there's a lot of oversight, and people don't want to pay taxes, et cetera, et cetera. I mean...
Right, you can't have it both ways. I mean, ideally, you wouldn't need to have either extreme, but...
Right. Yep. Hot mess, folks. Let's keep going. The next article is over on the Hatch Ideas channel as well. First grain ships arrive in Ukraine using new route. Officials say the vessels will deliver 200,000 tons of wheat to world markets. Yay.
This is really big if you haven't been following the grain news.
Yeah, so basically Russia invaded Ukraine, but Ukraine has been kicking Russia's butt, and finally some events took place where grain ships that were coming to Ukraine got taken out. And
there was a blockade as well.
Yeah, and a couple of tactical strikes on Russian ships has led to a new route that has enabled ships to come to Ukraine and get grain for the first time since the war, I think. Let's see, 2 cargo ships have arrived in Ukrainian port after traveling through the Black Sea using a new route. They reached Chernomorsk on Saturday and were due to load 20,000 tons of wheat bound for world markets. So wheat, by the way, has gone up in price. Rice has gone up in price. Oil, sunflower oil, and sunflower has gone up in price. Officials said it was the first time civilian ships had reached a Ukrainian port since the collapse of a deal with Russia, ensuring the safety of vessels. Previously, the corridor had only been used by ships departing from Ukraine. Let's see. Kyiv unilaterally declared the maritime corridor, which hugs the western coast of the Black Sea, after Russia abandoned a UN-backed deal that facilitated grain exports from Ukrainian ports. What I haven't heard from is that tiny little nation to the east of Ukraine, where they were saying that that they believe they were being overthrown by a Russian-backed, what do you call them? Agent provocateur.
Right, but I was trying to think of which country it was.
Yeah.
Was it Moldova?
Moldova, yeah. I haven't heard much. So at least now there are some ships that are making it in. It's quite a heavy cost, I'd say, if anything happens. Ukraine is one of the biggest suppliers of crops such as sunflower oil, barley, maize, and wheat. When Russia invaded in February 2022, its navy blockaded the country's Black Sea ports, trapping 20 million tons of grain, which were meant for export. So hopefully they're getting everything spun up again, and maybe even take back Crimea from the illegal annexation. Let's keep on going, though. We've got 2 more articles for today. I need to throw this into the chat. And all of this is going to stay in the recording, folks. Okay, let's keep going. So the next article is over in ohmTown Daily. Alabama high school band director tased for not stopping music. A man was tased after he allegedly ignored multiple requests to stop his band performing after a football game. All right.
I mean, is there more to the story here when you see this headline?
Yeah, I don't know. The article's over at Newsweek. Anglesey, Anglesey is the author. An Alabama high school band director was tased and arrested after he failed to stop his group playing after a high school football game, according to police. The Birmingham Police Department said the incident happened during a football game between Jackson Olin High School and Minor High School at the former's field on Thursday night. So, let's see. Officers then spoke to both directors to end the performance so students and other attendees would leave. The BPD said Jackson Olin band director stopped while the one from Minor High School allegedly did not. And so they tased him.
I gotta get to the end of the song or whatever.
What, so because people wouldn't leave because they were dancing? Tell them to leave.
No, this is unbelievable.
I mean, this is akin to the Titanic, and they're just playing until everybody leaves. It's just a band playing music.
Right, it's not the band that's causing the lifeboat issue or whatever.
But maybe it is, like the movie where the witches...
Hocus Pocus?
Hocus Pocus, yeah, where they cast a spell on the party goers, and they all stay and dance, and they would have danced until they died. If not for the
I think it's most
kids.
Definitely not like that.
The statement continued during the physical altercation. BPD officers attempted to get the band director to place his hands behind his back, but he refused, saying, "You can have my tuba from my cold, dead fingers." That's not what he says. He doesn't say anything. He says the arresting officer alleges the band director pushed him during the arrest. He's been pushed. The arresting officer then subdued the band director with a taser, which ended the physical confrontation. Yeah, it usually does. This music is electric, though.
Yeah, electrified, maybe.
Really gets you. Gets the blood flowing. Let's keep going. Last article. We're going to make this one really quick because there isn't really much to say. You know how everybody's supposed to not be shipping stuff to Russia? Well, apparently Halliburton equipment worth $7.1 million exported to Russia in the past year, customs records show. Oil and gas,
multinationals. I thought there were like sanctions and like restrictions on any U.S. companies kind of doing business with Russia.
Yeah, there is. U.S. oil and gas multinationals are facing fresh questions over their trade with Russia after customs records reveal that more than $7.1 million worth of equipment manufactured by Halliburton has been exported to the country since it announced the end of its Russian operations. Last September, Halliburton said one of the world's largest providers of products and services for oil and gas exploration, sold its Russian office to local management amid pressure on all U.S. companies to cease their trade after the invasion of Ukraine. So the article is over at The Guardian. Daniel Bofi, chief reporter at The Guardian, put the article together. The deck statement says U.S. oil multinationals face questions over trade with Russia amid pressure to cease operations. Russian customs records seen by The Guardian show that despite this move to sell up on 8 September, Halliburton subsidiaries exported equipment of a value of $5.7 million to its former operation in Russia in the 6 weeks that followed the sale. The equipment was largely shipped from the U.S. and Singapore, although the records show it originated in a range of countries, including the UK, Belgium, France. The bulk of exports from the subsidiaries ended on October 6th, but the last shipment to Russia from a Halliburton company, recorded as Halliburton MFG in the records, was of a sealing element priced at just shy of $3,000 on 24 October 2022 from Malaysia to a firm called Sikkim Energy, a consortium that is developing the Sikkim 2 oil and gas project in eastern Russia. Some of the biggest companies take part in some of the most horrendous military actions. I mean, just look around. Look at the companies that are manufacturing cars and planes and whatnot. And you'll find that they were part and parcel to facilitating the Nazi engine. And the conversations that I've had with people about this is, well, it's a business. They do what they need to do. Well,
I don't think you can go about facilitating
atrocity
things along those lines. Yes, thank you.
Well, no. Business is amoral, not immoral. Just the people that drive it are immoral. That's okay. Somebody was going to make money, the CEOs at the time, and their families, and their families, because they're all billionaires at this point, were the rightful heirs of all of that money, right? Building the engines. It's okay. It's fine. Right? I mean...
No, it's not okay.
Some human was going to do it. You might as well just do it. Okay. Anyway, it says it is understood that the sale of Halliburton operations in Russia was not fixed until late in the day, which may account for those shipments from its subsidiaries that left for the country shortly before and soon after 8 September. A spokesperson for Halliburton said Halliburton was the first major oil field services company to exit Russia. Apparently not. In full compliance with sanctions, it has been more than a year since we have conducted operations there. All right.
But it's been however long since we've shipped things over there.
Yeah, right. We're not doing any operations there, but we're selling shit there. I guess. It's kind of how this reads, right?
Was that September of this year or September 2022?
2022 is what it says.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But it says here, despite this move to sell up on 8 September, that says this year. So within the last year, it has exported or manufactured $7.1 million US dollars or 5.7 million pounds worth of equipment manufactured by Halliburton have been imported into the country since it announced the end of its operations, its Russian operations. So that was from 2022.
Okay, and so they've already, of course, taken out things that happened, say, prior to that cutoff. So
yeah, so this is all fresh. But they talk about down here later on that there were certain things that stopped back in 2022, a year ago. But this reference up here, the 7.1 million, that's all the way up to September 8th this year.
Oh, wow. Okay. I know this is not the same thing, but like we saw a lot of American companies bail out of Russia and unwind their operations. And I just saw within about the last month, a major company had just finally unwound its operations.
Sure.
Now, I don't know that it was trying to keep them there. It was just taking a long time to do that. But again, I'm not saying that's the same situation with this article.
You mean it doesn't take you 2 hours to turn off the light switch? Or 2 years to turn off the light switch?
I mean, I don't know. I don't run a multi-billion-dollar or multi-million-dollar company. I mean, I would think it might be like, let's shut the building.
That's right. Lock the doors, flip the light switch. Or actually go down to the basement.
There's paperwork or whatever, but...
There's a big breaker out on the street. You just pull that big breaker. That's how you turn off the light switch to a multi-billion-dollar organization. Oh, well. Silly me. I don't know. I just talk snarkily about this stuff. I know nothing about it. So, we always bring you back to the very front of ohmTown, the main street, the welcome sign, and then we poke that wasp nest that is News Gatherer. And we slowly kind of parse some news articles. Maybe we can find something, but not today. We're done today. We have to make it a short day, even though the show actually went an hour and a half. We have to get out of here. We've got a huge meeting here in ohmTown And yeah, so tomorrow, odds on we will be back to our regular schedule, 9 p.m. Eastern. Although we are seriously evaluating moving it an hour forward to 8 Eastern. It just affords us the ability to do a little bit more post-show work. That said, you should follow us here on Twitch, follow us over on YouTube, follow us on the podcast, go over to Discord. There is a Patreon. All of this stuff, let us know that you are there by signing up for these various locations. And like what I just did, poke the wasp nest and see what happens. I don't know. Anyway, thank you very much for coming. I am Airwatch. That is ohmTown.com. Up there is the AI that's going to say bye.
Bye-bye, ohmTown citizens. We will see you tomorrow at 9 p.m. Eastern.
Or 8. We'll see.